Go Big Red! The takes, the numbers, the chaos. Hunter Austin Dak. Talking Cornhusker football, basketball, and everything Nebraska sports. Welcome to the Return to Glory podcast!
Return to Glory podcast, live on YouTube. Hunter Zarbernicki. By myself right now, might be getting Austin or Dak to join later here. We are talking Big Ten preview this morning and going through not every team, but some of the key teams here in the Big Ten. Figured this is a good time to do it here before we get closer to the Huskers' first game against Ohio. And here's how we're going to do this today. I think it makes sense to try to break the Big Ten up into tiers and talk that way. And tiers might be different. I'm not setting a cap or a limit on the number of tiers, but we'll start right at the top here for our tier one. And I have three teams in this tier. I think maybe you could argue there's a fourth, but the three that I think everybody probably knows and thinks of here, one being Indiana, two being Ohio State, and three being Oregon, in no particular order here. Indiana and Oregon's win total is both at 10.5, and Ohio State's at 9.5. But let's start with Indiana, obviously winning the college football playoff last year, going 16-0 in Curt Cignetti's second year. He's heading into his third season with Mike Shanahan as his OC and Bryant Haynes as DC. Their staff stuck together. The big question here is going to be their quarterback, bringing in Josh Hoover. Can he live up or at least do something similar to what Fernando Mendoza did a year ago? And I think the big piece and takeaway here is a year ago, nobody knew Mendoza was going to do what he was going to do. So, I got to believe and trust Cignetti's going to do that with Josh Hoover here. And if he saw something in Josh Hoover, yeah, I think it's fair to say you can trust Cignetti at this point. I do think, for me, I want to see Cignetti do it another year. I think he's obviously a very good football coach, but for him to go down as maybe one of the all-time legends, I think he needs to do this another year and maybe not win it, but just be competitive and also make the college football playoff, which, again, with what they got and who they are, it's crazy for me to say this now, but I think they should be able to do it. And it's another reload year, but it's reload for everybody for Indiana, and I think they'll be back in the playoffs. So Oregon is a team that everybody's really liking this year, and I've heard them getting picked to win it all. They have a lot of talent. Specifically, if you were listening to Dylan Raiola, they have a lot of talent, more than Nebraska. Obviously, we knew that. Last year, they lost in the semifinal to Indiana, and didn't just lose, but it just got absolutely destroyed. Head coach Dan Lanning's in his fifth year. They're still chasing, Oregon's still chasing their first national title, believe it or not. We know Dante Moore is one of the Heisman favorites out there in Eugene. They brought in Mekhi Hughes, the running back from Tulane, and we know the story of Dylan Raiola, and they have a solid backup. You don't think of most college football teams having a too deep quarterback roster that you feel good about. I think Oregon has that. I think the question, for them is going to be, is Dante Moore one of, if not the best quarterback in the country, and will he live up to that hype? And will that lead Oregon to a potential national title this year. Where a lot of people think, and myself included, I think they have the potential to do it this year. Nebraska obviously goes on the road to Eugene right after Indiana, so back-to-back games. And then the last team here in this tier, in the heavyweight tier, I'm calling it, is Ohio State. Nebraska also plays them, so yeah, we knew we play all three of these teams. I think Ohio State, just as fair as the other two, has potential here to make a run and also win it all. They lost the Big Ten title game last year. They ended up losing in the quarterfinals to Miami last year. Ryan Day's in his 8th season. They bring back quite a few players. Julian Sayin comes back. Jeremiah Smith comes back. I think, they bring in Arthur Smith, offensive coordinator from the Steelers, and then also the Falcons in the NFL. Matt Patricia is still here at DC. I think if you're pulling hairs, all three of these teams can have potential there to be at the top, and I think Ohio State's big game early part of the year is going to be going to Texas and seeing if they can win that one. They won last year 14-7 in that low scoring game at home. Can they go on the road and win that game early? If they lose that game, I don't think it's a big deterrent for the rest of the year. They also have a very talented roster, but their schedule also is very tough, which is why that win total's down there at 9.5. The fun part is about these teams is all three of them play each other. On October 17th, Ohio State travels to Indiana, and then they host Oregon on November 7th. So at least Ohio State plays both of them. Oregon and Indiana do avoid each other. I think it'll be interesting to see how that plays out before we get to the Big Ten title game. Okay, going down to Tier 2 here. I will say this is my, could make the playoffs if they have a good year, but they need to prove it to be in there. We have a lot of these win totals being here at 8.5 and 7.5. I think, for me, Penn State is in this tier. They went just 7-6 last year, hiring Matt Campbell. Matt Campbell coming from Iowa State. This is basically Iowa State with some additions, I think, is what the headline is here. Rocco Becht from Iowa State follows over, which I think is important. In a first year, having a quarterback that you're comfortable with. The question for him is going to be, can Campbell and them win right away at a new... Iowa State obviously is a Power 5 school, but this is the next step up. This is Penn State. This is one of the powerhouses, Power 4 teams. Does 9-3, is that okay? I think Penn State will take that after last year, but I think they have a very high expectation here, especially given what they're going up against with those teams in that first tier. I have USC next here with Lincoln Riley, who, believe it or not, has still never made the college football playoff. He is in his 5th season. I think if you were to ask anybody going into his 5th season how many times Lincoln Riley would be in the playoff, they would have said more than 0. So he's got a little bit of pressure here. They did go 9-4 last year after losing to TCU in the Alamo Bowl. They need to make an appearance. They need to be relevant again. I think that's what USC fans are wanting. Anything less than an 8-4, 9-3 season, I think you're going to be seeing some people calling for Lincoln Riley's head. Michigan brings in Kyle Whittingham in his first year from Utah. They get rid of Sharon Moore. Bryce Underwood is back. Michigan's one of these teams for me that is not getting talked about a lot. They do return quite a bit. Bryce Underwood was a very big hot topic going into the offseason last year and is getting very little to none this season. I think Michigan, the good thing they have going for them is they brought in a coach that, to me, defines Michigan football. Like Whittingham and what he did at Utah, ran the ball a lot, very old school. Like that to me is what Michigan's strength is. It's what their identity is. And I think Whittingham fits that very, very well. Their big game in the non-conference is Oklahoma, as they get a host to them early on in the year. I think for Michigan, is it going to click? Is things going to work out? Just like Campbell at Penn State, is this going to work out here right away in year one? I think it could. I'm pretty high on them. I'm glad we don't play them. They do have to go to Oregon and to Ohio State, and they also play Penn State at home. Like this, the schedule's not easy by any means. So I get why that win total is at 7.5, but I still think there's a lot of talent on this roster. I think they play with a very tough and gritty identity. So I'm big on Michigan here. I do like their over 7.5, even though they have those tough games. I think they're going to beat Oklahoma, and I think getting Iowa and Penn State at home is good for them. Speaking of tough, gritty football, and we don't want to have to talk about this team too long, but the Iowa Hawkeyes. Here they are again, another 9-4 season, 8-4 in the regular season. They take down an SEC team that rose last year in Vanderbilt in the ReliaQuest Bowl. Yes, Kirk Ferentz is still back in his 28th season as the Iowa head coach. Offensive coordinator Tim Lester is in his third year. He came over from Western Michigan a few years ago, and I think that things have gone well for Iowa, and I shouldn't say well, they've gotten better because it couldn't have got worse for Iowa football and their offense. But it's gotten better for them since Tim Lester was hired, and then Phil Parker is back as his 25th season as defensive coordinator. Here's the funny thing about Iowa. They lost all three offensive linemen to the NFL, and their biggest question mark comes in on the offensive line. I'm guessing that they will reload fine. That's what Iowa does. If there's any place where they can identify talent, it's on the offensive line. And the question mark every year for Iowa is, I guess it is every year, but it doesn't really matter, is who's their quarterback. I don't think it matters, and they bring in Jeremy Hecklinski and Hank Brown are the two guys competing here for the quarterback position. Again, I don't know that it really matters because Iowa does what they do, and they continue to win 8 or 9 games by doing what they do. It's never pretty, and it's pretty annoying, especially when you're a Nebraska fan. But that's Iowa. Next in this tier, and this is still my playoff chasing tier, is Illinois and Brett Bielema in his 6th season out in Champaign. Last year also went 8-3 or 8-4 in the regular season, beat Tennessee in the Music City Bowl. And there's another one of these teams that has an identity, and I think the big thing here in year 6 is Bielema set a little bit of a new expectation here for Illinois and really raise the floor, if you'd say that they're not expecting to make the playoffs by any means, but they are expected to make a bowl game and win 6-7 games every year. Their schedule, they do get to host a lot of these games, which is nice. They play Ohio State and Oregon both at home. They play Duke in the non-conference. Caden Hauser arrives as the quarterback from East Carolina, and he used to be at Michigan State. He's got some experience there at quarterback, and it looks like that it could fit Bielema's system very, very well. And then the last team I have in this tier, and you could maybe argue they could have been higher in this list, but is Washington, and I like to label them as the quiet chaos team. They aren't getting, and they haven't gotten a whole lot of talk, but I think they have the talent and the potential here with Damon Williams to be kind of a disruptor here in the Big Ten. Yeah, Nebraska, we get them at home on Halloween, so we definitely have something to say about that and can shut that out. But Washington could be a very sneaky good team here in the Big Ten, and their schedule's pretty favorable. They play Oregon, play Penn State, and then they obviously play at UCLA out there as well. I think if they really build around Damon Williams, it could look really good. I think it's a similar story to Nebraska, where if he's having to do everything, I think it could be a problem. But they have the potential there to really, I think, make some noise in this tier and in the Big Ten Conference. So I did put 6 teams in this second tier, which I think may or may not be fair. But the third tier here, I guess I also have 5 teams in this tier. And this is where I'm putting Nebraska, and then again, no particular order here. I think you could argue any of these teams could be above the others. I'm not going to talk a lot about us because we have another podcast. Minnesota, I have in this tier, and I am gonna say they're ahead of us because they kicked our butt last year. They did go 8-5, beat New Mexico in the Rate Bowl. PJ Fleck, another coach that has had Matt Rule's and Nebraska's number for quite some time now. He's in his 10th season. They bring back Drake Lindsey at quarterback and Darius Taylor, one of the Big Ten's top running backs heading in to next year. Drake Lindsey, he's not a guy that needs to be a top quarterback in the Big Ten. I don't think he even has that potential. But again, it's similar to me, like Iowa. I think Minnesota's they're not Iowa, but they're like a modern version of Iowa. They do a lot of their same things and they do it well. And if things really click, they can break out and have a really good year. And Drake Lindsey does that for Iowa. Fleck just keeps doing what he's doing, and I think the question for Minnesota fans is this good enough? But like Illinois, the floor has been raised, right? They make a bowl game every year. They have talk that they could go further, but they're just nothing anything flashy. Wisconsin, Luke Fickell, year 4. They've tried a lot of things. They went 4-8 last year. I don't know how I feel about Wisconsin. There's more talk about them being better. They haven't made a bowl game in 2 straight years. They seem to be following the Nebraska path of post-Bo Pelini. Their starting quarterback, Colton Joseph, projected to be QB1. I don't know. Wisconsin's one of these hard teams that, like, if they go back to their roots, I think they're going to be better off. We learned that lesson, but so far they haven't shown to do that. Luke Fickell was also a guy in that same year as Matt Rule, right? That was another name, and Nebraska was, and some people wanted Fickell over Rule. So that's what makes this conversation a little bit fun. UCLA is the next team I want to talk about here with Bob Chesney, who got a lot of headlines and praise at Big Ten Media Days, coming over from James Madison. Obviously, James Madison, post Curt Cignetti, he continued that and got himself a Power 4 job. And UCLA last year, they struggled. They went 3-9. They fired Deshaun Foster in the middle of the year. Old Sunshine, the blonde, I forget his name now, the blonde-haired kid took over as head coach, which was kind of a fun story there for a little bit, who I think he's now at Northwestern, which we'll get to here. Nico Iamaleava, however you want to say his name, is back at quarterback. He's still that same elite recruit that he was. I think you saw his upside in some games last year. We'll see. We'll see what he looks like in this new offense under offensive coordinator Dean Kennedy. if he's elite and just kind of like a couple of these other teams, right? If it's not all relying on his arm and his legs, UCLA could be another team that shocks some people. He Chesney obviously knows how to win. He's shown how to do that. Can he do that at UCLA? This last team here, I don't know. I think actually I'm putting them in the next tier. So I'm gonna put 4 teams in this tier: Nebraska, Minnesota, Wisconsin, UCLA, and I'm gonna move. Initially, I had them in tier 3, but tier 4, I'm moving Northwestern down here, and these are all teams to me that I think are looking for a bowl game. Northwestern did make a bowl game last year and beat Central Michigan in that bowl game. David Braun, I think he's done a pretty damn good job at Northwestern, and he's now in his 4th season as the head coach. Chip Kelly comes in as the new offensive coordinator. Yes, Chip Kelly. He is at Northwestern. The big storyline in Northwestern is they got a new stadium, and it's I don't know, a glorified soccer stadium as I've heard it's called, but it's nice. Like, to me, it's right what you expect out of a Northwestern stadium. It doesn't need to be a big 90,000 seated because they don't get those fans to go to the games anyways. It's usually filled with opposing teams' fans, but it looks very good for their situation. Aiden Childs, or as Austin likes to call him, Aiden Chili's, coming in for Michigan State as the quarterback. You know, pairing him with Chip Kelly's offense it'll be a very sneaky, fun experiment here in the Big Ten. I think the question's going to be on their defense. You know, can they finally slow some teams down? Next team here in this bottom tier, Rutgers. Schiano, year 7 in his 2nd stint. Nebraska does go out there. This is a game that we hope we can win going out to Piscataway. We'll see what's in store for him. Don't know either of these quarterbacks, AJ Sarras and Dylan Longeren. I think Rutgers' question is going to be, can they defend and play ugly and muck up some wins? Maryland with Mike Locksley. I think he's probably the coach on the hottest of hot seats here in the Big Ten in his 8th year. We went out there last year to the game, and he was not very highly praised from a lot of the Maryland fans as we talked to them. But they do have a quarterback that I'm very high on and is fun to watch in Malik Washington. He was a freshman last year too. So Locksley's been 2-16 in the Big Ten in the last 2 years. They have some talent. They usually start the year off hot. Can they sustain that into October and November? Michigan State. Yes, I feel like maybe they shouldn't be in this tier, but as of right now they are. They went 4-8 last year. Jonathan Smith, that experiment failed. In comes Pat Fitzgerald, the guy that's had Nebraska's number in the past as far as just always giving us a challenge no matter what team he had at Northwestern. I think this could be a slow start for Fitzgerald's tenure at Michigan State, and it may be tough. Now, I'm going to bite my tongue in saying that when we go out or if we go out and lose in our first conference game out there. But this is a game that Nebraska, we should be a couple double-digit point favorite out there, even just given where Michigan State's at and where I think they want to be. A lot of people aren't high on Fitzgerald. I don't like that because it's going to give them more momentum in the locker room. But I do have them in this bottom tier right now. And like I said, Nebraska's no stranger to losing to these bottom tier teams because we have. So maybe we should be in there too. But this is where I find them right now. And then Purdue, 2-10 last year. Head coach Barry Odom. In his 2nd year, I don't know what to say about Purdue. They are trying to build something. They've tried to build something with some different coaches. Odom's bringing in what he believes is his version of that, and he's a toughness type of coach. Ryan Brown is returning, so there's a bright side there as a projected starter. I think for me, I guess it's not even for me, but Dak mentioned the comment by the Purdue AD. I think Purdue just needs to become respectable again in the conference. Again, I say that when they weren't maybe as respectable, they also beat Nebraska back then. So I think for them, getting to a bowl game would be a big step in the right direction. But even going 4-8 or 5-7 would be progress for them. And I think in year 2, under Barry Odom, moving forward to that point would be a positive. So those are my tiers here for the Big Ten. I think looking at the Big Ten from a bigger picture standpoint, I do think that there is, obviously coming off their third national title in a row, high expectations from the conference overall. And one of those 3 teams I mentioned at the top are all going to be talked of potential national title contenders and winners for this year. So we'll see if we can hold up our end of the bargain. It is fun being in the conference because we get a lot of talk, but it's not fun in the sense that we have to play all these teams, and when we're trying to be nationally relevant as well, which we haven't been in decades now, that's sad to say. I think that makes it tough, right? So I think it's probably the best conference now in the country, and it's not being Big Ten biased. That's pretty much a fact given how the last few years have gone. It has really pulled the SEC's hair out a little bit where we're at in the college football landscape. So that'll do it for today in the Big Ten preview. Tomorrow we'll be back talking about identity and philosophies and what that means and what we expect that to mean for Nebraska's offense and defense. Again, you can find us every morning live on YouTube at 6:20. Now 6:20, and the recordings can be found also on YouTube and on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere else you listen to your podcasts. Go Big Red.
The headlines change, but the mission stays.